Welcome back to another installment of the Pin Pals Podcast, the podcast that interviews pin makers behind your favorite pins. I'm your host, Eric from Warrior Pins. Hope y'all are doing well. Whether you're tuning in at work, packing orders, whatever the case might be, at the gym, I appreciate you being here. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, be sure you're following the podcast, rating it 5 stars, and dropping a review if you can. If you're watching along on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed and smashing that like button. That really does help the algorithm. Lastly, you can get updates on the podcast by following our social media accounts. Links will be in the show notes for our Instagram and Twitter page. Shout out to my Buy Me a Coffee crew for always being amazing and holding it down on the Pin Pals Discord server. Discussions are always a lot of fun, super entertaining. I love seeing some of the pictures, a lot of behind the scenes stuff. Black Friday has recently been a topic of discussion, so it will be interesting to see how all these different pin makers will approach the holiday season. If you want to join the fun, visit buymeacoffee.com/pinpalspodcast and become a monthly supporter. You'll get weekly newsletters, get access to rewards, 20% off all pin orders at warriorpins.com, and of course, exclusive access to the Pin Pals Discord server. All right, so today's episode is a fun one. I got to chat with Chris of Blank Slate, purveyors of pins, patches, stickers, and hard goods, as his Instagram bio reads. Chris is a fellow pin maker based in San Diego and was one of the panelists on the San Diego Comic-Con pin panel, episode 28, if anyone wants to check that out. But Chris is one of my newer pin pals, so it was really cool getting to learn more about his brand and his thought process behind running a pin shop. He's really put in the work. He has a really strong background with design, and that's just super evident when you look at the branding and his approach. It's very stylistic, it's clean, it's bold. I'm a big fan of it. Anyways, we get into the usual topics: origin stories, pin making process, marketing strategies, sharing tips, tricks, sharing vending experiences, and so much more. So without further ado, enjoy my conversation with my pin pal, Blank Slate. Welcome to Pin Pals, Chris. How's it going?
Very good, Eric. How are you?
Doing well. Staying cool. It's pretty muggy and rainy out here in Jersey, so like the far opposite of what you're experiencing right now.
The heat wave right now is brutal. For anyone that's here in Southern California would totally know. So,
are the pins burning up?
Only the sails.
Is the enamel melting? I wonder if that's an actual thing. Like, how hot does it have to be, if the pins are in transit, temperature-wise, for like enamel to melt or something like that?
Oh, that's a good one. Like they start to run off of the metal.
Yeah, or what if like some epoxy coating becomes sticky or something like that? I don't know.
I'm assuming there's probably some companies that haven't cured things correctly, and that actually could happen.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Interesting. Anyways, yeah, welcome to the podcast. I'd love to get things started by having you introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers.
Hi, everybody. Chris Provenzano. My company is called Blank Slate. I've been doing pins, patches, stickers, and hard goods for a little over 5 years. We just had our anniversary this year. Very proud of that. And I'm born and raised in San Diego.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that. So yeah. So you knew your way around when it came to San Diego Comic-Con.
For sure.
Yeah.
Been going for a long time.
Amazing. For anyone who has been living under a rock, Chris was one of the panelists at San Diego Comic-Con at the Creating Collectibles Enamel Pin panel. Ooh, that's a tongue twister.
Thank you, Phil, by the way, which is always have to give that guy big props. So,
oh yeah, shout out to Phil. He kind of coordinated everything, and it was a very last minute thing, and people coming in and out of the lineup and stuff like that. It was a lot to juggle, a lot to get ready for. So yeah, shout out to Phil, Cool Electric Creations. So let's just talk about it. If anyone's interested, I think it's like episode 28. You go back a few, you get to hear the entire panel on the podcast. But I'd love to just kind of get your firsthand account of what it was like being a panelist at freaking San Diego Comic-Con.
First, amazing. I've been going to Comic-Con since '86.
Ooh.
I'm for anyone that doesn't know me or thinks that I'm young in age, I'm actually only young in spirit. So I'm an elder statesman, but again, only been doing pins for about 5 years. Going to Comic-Con since forever, like 30 plus years. I've been a professional since '94. And then this was actually my first panel that I've ever actually got to be on. So incredible. Way more people than I thought would show up.
Climbing the ranks. Pretending to walk up a ladder. Yeah.
Like there was this whole behind the scenes conversation with all of us. And it was like, how many people do you think is going to show up? How many people? And it was like, literally reading that, I was like, oh my God, the room is going to be empty. We're going to be like sitting there talking to like 10 people. But for like 70-ish people to be there, like half the room filled, was amazing. Like to see people ask questions, be interactive with us, for myself to ask questions back to the audience, like all of that was almost kind of surreal. And to get some feedback and be on a panel with peers that are going through the same thing that I am was awesome, because it even helped me settle a lot of things going on in my own brain, how I handle my business compared to these 6 other people. So
yeah, for sure. It was very validating, as is the podcast, just getting to talk to people. And, we got similar struggles and stuff like that. But more so, at a panel, not only with each other, the panelists, like, connecting with each other, but actually being able to make these connections with people in attendance.
Exactly. Like me and you meeting an hour before and actually sitting in that cafe talking, not knowing each other at all, but really felt like old friends reconnecting for the first time. Like it was weird, but it was awesome. And then having Jessica and Jackie show up and actually have them jump into our conversation too. It was so cool, just like free flowing and just really off the cuff, but amazing. So
hell yeah, it was a lot of fun. The entire panel is up on the podcast. I got to keep promoting that, because I think that's like one of my like a proud accomplishments if I had to put it on like my resume or something like that.
For sure. And I hope we are all lucky enough to get invited by Phil again to do something like that, because I thought we had a good core group, be able to actually do that again and talk about other subjects like as the years go on. So
for sure, yeah, that would be really cool to put together like a presentation that kind of shows the different types of pins, or be able to actually plan to maybe hand out pins if you attend the panel that explain like the differences and stuff like that. But after that, all of that was done, my week in California, I was like, I'm good. I'm never going to go again. And then some people were like, yo, maybe if it happens again next year, little by little, I've slowly been reconsidering coming back. Just because, like, there's something special about it, man.
Yeah, you start to miss it. Like, by the end of Comic-Con, I'm always like, I'm done. I'm so glad this is over. My feet hurt. My body hurts. Like, unless you've been, like, it's hard. Like, people go, how can you complain about going to Comic-Con? Well, unless you've been and actually walked. Like, I check my steps every day. One day I logged like 8.5 miles.
Woo!
That's a lot. That's a lot for walking the floor and doing stuff around. So it's crazy. Yeah. So, and people don't realize, and you're crammed into a building with 100,000 people, and it's a lot. It's a lot to deal with and do all that. And especially on the day of our panel, it was like running around, enjoying Comic-Con, then getting to the panel in time, doing the panel. I had a party afterwards. It was like non-stop for me. So, I know, it was crazy. So
that's amazing. So let's kind of take it back all the way to the beginning. You said you started Blank Slate Design 5-6 years ago. But before that, you said you kind of became professional back in like the early '90s. Were
Yes,
you were in design, right?
I am in design. Yeah. So my day job is creative director, and I work for a company that has about 100 employees. We have a small team of designers. We handle everything from screen printing and web and social media, print, a little bit of everything. So that's like the day job. And then I come home, and like a lot of people that have the side hustle, this takes up all of the rest of my time. So from, work, home, gym, dinner, relax, work, bed. Like that's literally how my days go every day. And working on weekends and working on over the holiday weekend, that's just like the norm. Like for me, as I've become such a workaholic through my years. And like my first job out of college was working in comic books, which is my start of my professional career. I worked for Jim Lee at Wildstorm, which I don't even think we talked about. So, and I was there for 3 years, and that's really kind of cut my teeth as far as production and design. Getting to see how comic books are made, working, I started on third shift. I was there from like 2 to midnight. Like it was crazy, like how that whole thing worked, and then worked my way up into the design department there and just really kind of grew what I knew design was. And actually, I can almost think back to that as the start of how pins work in some ways. And I'll wrap back around to that. But then after I finished at Wildstorm, I've worked in ad agencies, action sports, health industries, video games. I've kind of had my dream jobs happen through my whole career. And I've been very, very lucky to work with amazing people and help grow what I've done professionally, which has allowed me to get where I am now.
Wow. Yeah. So you've had quite the background. They pretty much put the ball in the tee, and you were able to like knock it out of the park, I guess, so to speak. When you started making pins. Yeah.
And so making pins for me goes back to how comic books are made in some ways, where everything starts with you get to this point where, you have somebody sketch, and then you go in and have the inker draw the black lines, and then somebody goes in and fills the color. So just like that, that's how I do pin making. So sketch, and then Illustrator, or adding the black lines, and then going in and adding color. So
awesome. Yeah, when you look at it like that, I guess I'm a comic book artist.
We really are. We really are, if you think about it that way. And comic book artists can translate probably to pins a lot easier than other people.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. So walk me through what your pin making process looks like. Like, are you sketching on digitally, or is it like, analog to digital? What's
analog?
That like?
Analog. I'm old school. I'm again old/old school. So everything I started with goes from sketchbook to finished product. So starts with a sketch, figuring out how everything looks, then goes to tracing paper, really tight pencils, scanning the image in, taking it into Illustrator, and then drawing everything by hand in Illustrator.
Oh, wow. That is, I love that process. There's like a, I don't know, certain like, I don't know what the word is, feng shui thing about that, taking your time, doing it properly.
Yeah, because I do know a lot of people that jump on the tablet or jump into Illustrator or Canva or anything like that and actually start creating. And I'm much more of a doodle sketch, getting to the point where I like something and getting it really fine-tuned before I even get it onto the computer. Because I want something to work before I even get to that point. And there's plenty of stuff that I've drawn that will never see the light of day as a pin or anything else, just because I can't get it to the point where I would want to take it into Illustrator and actually redraw it.
Got it. So talk to me about some of the pins that you've been creating, some of like the different fandoms that you're touching on and different series.
Yeah. So anyone that knows me or would like to know about me, my big thing is Star Wars. And I created something that I thought would be very unique and it's called the Interlock series. And basically, it is pins that are like puzzle pieces. So each pin stands alone, and then each pin connects to the next pin next to it on both sides, if that makes sense. And then each pin is part of a series. So let's say the first series I did was the Bounty Hunter series, which is that iconic scene from Empire Strikes Back with all the bounty hunters and Darth Vader. And all those pins are individual, but then also fit together into a set. And then actually the next set that comes next to them actually fit in the same line. So sooner or later, it just becomes one long line of pins.
Yeah, I've definitely seen an Instagram post that it's just like, how many miles of pins do we have here?
People always ask when this is going to come or when this character is going to be there. It's interesting because the Star Wars fandom as a whole is very they have that what do you want to call it? Proprietary. They want to feel like they are part of what you're creating, which is awesome. So my fandom and my fans that collect my stuff are always like, when's the next pin coming out? When's this pin coming out? When's the series going to be done? Should I buy these individually? Should I buy them one at a time? Like, I get a lot of these questions, or when are you going to restock this pin? Or I do a lot of variants. So it's like, when is this variant coming out? Or when is this variant coming back? So
Yeah, that's pretty interesting because, you have to take a strategical approach when you do series and things like this. And, when it's something that your business sells well, then you kind of, want to try and like maximize the profits. I know that kind of sounds a little, I don't know, cash grabby, but like
it's really not though, because so I see people that do a lot of limited series pins, and I get that, they want to make 100 and cap it out, and that's awesome. That's something that I wish I could do sometimes, and I've thought about I do a series called the Premium Edition pins, where they're larger, bigger pins. And when those ran out, my Darth Vader Premium Edition ran out, and I haven't restocked them at all. And I get a lot of questions: when are you going to restock these? When are you going to restock these? And I just haven't decided if and when. I never said they were going to be limited, but on my stuff, you want to continue the fandom. So I always want to make more Darth Mauls or more Darth Vaders or more Lukes, because people are going to want to add them to their collection. And they may start off with one or two, but once they start to see the series grow, I get these people where they're like, oh my God, I started with one or two and now I have all four of the sets already. So
yeah, you think from a business perspective, it's like maybe makes more sense, to kind of, if you have an idea and you want to make multiple pins, like a series or something like that, is it better to kind of just do one at a time, one a month, let's say, or to release a series at a time? How do you kind of approach that?
We'll tie the two of these in because I actually got something here. So here is the actual sketch. I don't know if you can see it from the New Hope series. This is literally where that series starts from as my sketches. And then I hated the way that Luke and Leia looked in there, so I then go back through and I did different poses. Then I take that into a little tighter sketches, and then into Illustrator to draw them all out. So when I do a series, I actually draw the whole set even before I know I'm going to release all of them, just to make sure everything fits, everything looks good, everything's colored correctly, because then I can send them off one at a time to the manufacturer, however I decide to set them out. So mine is more like make everything creatively and then send them off one at a time, and don't oversaturate how they come out.
Okay.
If that helps.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So then I guess maybe the right question to ask, or a different question to ask, is what's your approach to releasing pins? Because you do have a lot of stuff on your Etsy page, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but like, are you pretty much alluded to maybe like once a week, once a month, you have like certain drops and stuff?
Yeah, about once a month to every 6 weeks, I try to do for the interlock pins. And since that's just the Star Wars interlock right now, there's always other stuff coming out. So recently I dropped my new area code pins, doing pin shows recently, we've noticed a big uptick in hat sellers, hat pins. So I needed to have something that I could sell to that part of the market. So as a business, I don't want to exclude anyone. I'm inclusive. So you're not buying Star Wars. I don't want you to walk by my booth. I want you to look to see what else I have. So I have band pins. I have sayings like other pop culture pins, and now my area code pins. So they tie into each city. So the first two I started with was Los Angeles, the 213, and San Diego, the 619. And they actually fit in the area of the cap where the new era pin goes. So being such a marketing guy, and part of my day job is to kind of study people. You see all these hat guys are going in and buying these pins and covering their hats. So I wanted to jump into that market. So I will always throw something else in besides just Star Wars pins.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And I feel like it kind of ties in with your name too, Blank Slate Design. Like there's a little versatility to it.
Yeah. And we talked off air a little bit about this, like how that really is apropos for what I do, starting with literally a blank piece of paper and creating something. And that's really where everything started was. And it's weird. I recently found a piece of paper. I jotted down names. Like, have you ever found something old like that where you're like, oh, this is where I came up with all these names that I
have a list of names.
Yeah. So, but I settled on Blank Slate was the final one that I went with. So
nice. Yeah. That's cool. I'm scrolling through your Etsy page. You also have really great pictures too. Do you think that plays a big part into like the whole marketing, trying to get people to buy your pins when they can't make it to a show?
I think so. I take a lot of time and a lot of pride in all the pieces that build up the Blank Slate brand. You know, everything from product photography to my Instagram ads having a consistent look and a consistent feel. The way the Etsy page is laid out and looks. What else? Branding for everything. My backing cards, things like that. Things that I think a lot of people sometimes use as a throwaway or don't really take as much time to think about as a pin maker. Where, again, that conversation we had on the panel, how much does that really affect pin buying versus what those of us that actually make the pins, how much time do you really spend doing that? Or how much money do you want to spend doing that? In our case, like, is it worth doing that as a sales tool?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think you do it so well at your booth that we did Patches and Pins Expo like a couple days after the panel, and I was able to see kind of like the Blank Slate experience in person, and I was just like really impressed.
Thanks.
And it's, brands like you, and this isn't to like knock anyone, but it's clear that you kind of went all in with your branding and you tried to get it everywhere. Everything looks very cohesive, one like nice big experience. How important do you think that is to, just a brand, a business in general?
Really important. I feel like when somebody can see an ad on Instagram and know instantaneously that's you without even knowing what the product you're talking about or whatever you're dropping is going to be, that sells it half the way. So from my show ads to my pin ad, everything has a look. So when people see that online, they're like, oh, he's in a show, or hey, he's dropping something, or any of that stuff. And it's the same with, I adopted that yellow color from day one. I had this conversation with a friend. We had a big talk about how we market and brand other companies. And it was like, make something yours. And I said, yellow is going to be mine. So when you come to the Blank Slate experience in person at a booth, everything is very well branded. Everything is set up on the grid wall. So you have Star Wars, you have other stuff here, you have stuff on the table, you have the big yellow booth, you have like the Blank Slate banner behind me up. everything is very. I bought yellow flooring for the indoor show we did. Like it's crazy. I got so many compliments from other vendors from the yellow floor. They're like, your booth looks awesome. Like that's the way that it should look. And I even get a lot of questions from people just starting, like, how much money should I spend, or what's the first things I should buy to get my business started? And I'm 5 years in, so it helps that I've done this long enough where I can see what works for doing shows or selling online and having my, the only person I rely on is me. We're one man shows, like all of it. Like anyone who's like doing this kind of part-time or even full-time guys, like a lot of people, this is their business and they put everything they got into it, and they're making the pins, they're drawing the pins, they're creating the ads, they're putting stuff up on Etsy, they're putting pins on backing cards and bagging them and printing the labels and shipping it out. Like it's a lot of work. It really is. You better love this, otherwise you're wasting your time. But going back to the branding part, start small. Like start with making your stuff, at least your logo or your name or your tablecloth. Like you're probably going to start off with a 6 or an 8 foot table. Do your tablecloth with your stuff on it. And when somebody walks up to your booth, they're going to say, oh, I've seen that on Instagram, or I've seen that on TikTok, and I know who you are just from that. So
yeah. And just to add to that, I think less is more too.
Yeah, less is more. And then build as you go. And you're going to find out what works, what doesn't work, like how much product you have and how it's going to grow along the way.
Amazing. I'm kind of getting lost. I'm getting flashbacks.
Yeah, sorry, I jumped all over the place.
No, I love it because I kind of, I look at all these different guests, and kind of lean into their expertise. I mean, clear, you've been in the industry for a while, so you're doing well. I mean, for a vanity thing, if you want to look at how many sales Chris has on his Etsy page, it's 3,500 sales, over 5 years. That's really impressive. When you look at his Instagram page.
The thing I'm more proud of on that, believe it or not, is I have 100% satisfaction rating.
Hell yeah.
And all 5-star reviews.
Hell yeah.
No negative, not that I need them. And, I really do try to, anyone who emails me or has a problem, I try customer service to fix whatever it is. Lost pins, late stuff. I've sent out free pin replacements to people. I'll throw free stickers in, anything that's going to try to help satisfy a customer down the road, because repeat customers is the way to go. So especially if somebody loves the Star Wars stuff and they have a bad taste in their mouth from the first time they bought something from you, they may not come back and buy more of the set. So I want to make sure they're happy no matter what.
Absolutely. I want to go back to what you said about, marketing. If let's say we had like a budget, like $200 to $300, something like really small, but somewhat, still affordable. How would you go about spending that, getting ready for a table? Assuming that does not include the table cost.
Okay. I'm still an Instagram guy. I have a TikTok set up for Blank Slate, but I haven't done anything on there. And the only reason I have Facebook is to ties into Instagram. I don't really do much on Facebook as far as selling, even though I have attempted on there. So most of my stuff is done Instagram. I do all my posts on there. I boost on there. So I would spend money to boost posts as far as a show. And then that's kind of it for me. Like it's weird because I haven't found anything that works better yet. Etsy ads, but it's really split for me. Like I'm always making my Etsy sales here, but that's not going to affect the shows that I do. And the shows that I do don't always affect my Etsy sales. So it's kind of like two sides of the same coin for me.
Interesting. You've run ads, when you're going to like patches and pins or something like that in the past?
Yeah. So if you're on my Instagram page or have ever poked around on there, a couple of weeks before, I'll start posting hot and heavy, where I'm doing an ad for something I'm selling and an ad or like a post for something I'm selling and a post for something that I'm doing. So whenever I have multiple events, so the weekend of Comic-Con, I was posting ads about being at Comic-Con and doing our panel, as well as ads about being up in Anaheim with you at the Patches and Pin show. And they were basically running conjunctively along the way. So, and then like, it was almost too much in a little ways, but I needed people. It was split into two different categories because not everyone was going to attend Comic-Con and not everyone's going to a pin show either. So I needed to make sure everyone knew where I was going to be. And I didn't even have a booth at Comic-Con, but just running into people that we knew, some of our friends that had booths like Punchy Chewy Press and BB Create, Little Shop of Pins, like I know a lot of people that were there. So it was like, oh, cool, I'm going to hang out with them. And kind of then you get introduced to other people and it's just kind of a party. And then going up to Anaheim and actually having to really work. And if you're a pin maker and you've never done a pin show, I say as soon as you can, sign up for one and do it, because it will really change the way that your outlook is as far as your pin company goes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It really, really does. Just being able to like be there where the heart of the community is. Just all it takes is just like a couple connections with people to be like, I need to come back and do this. This is like more than just sales and stuff like that. You know, it taps into like the community aspect of selling, or not selling, like running a brand.
Yeah. And like for me, doing those in-person things is way more important than doing sales on Etsy, because sales on Etsy is just going to happen naturally anyways. People are going to stumble across it. They're going to see an Etsy ad, they'll see Instagram ad, and they're going to go buy something. But for me to actually talk to people when they're walking by my booth going, hey, have you ever heard of Blank Slate? Or, hey, these are interlock pins. Have you ever seen these? Or are you a Star Wars fan? Or do you live here in LA? I have these 213 pins for your cap. Like, I'm a salesman when it comes to those shows. Like, I'm talking to everyone that comes into my booth, everyone that walks by the front of my booth when my booth is empty. Kids that come in will get a free sticker or a free button. Like, it's just one of those things where that grows the business exponentially as far as what you're doing, because you're going to find, and people may not even buy, they'll look at, like, they walk up and they see these Star Wars sets and they're like, wow, these are kind of expensive for a set. I'm like, yeah, but you're going to get 9 pins for this cost. Oh, that breaks down. It's cheaper than buying them individually, that type of stuff. So they'll take a business card, and then the next day or two, I'll end up getting a sale out of it. So it's the shows for me are invaluable. Like, I got some harassment from friends saying, I can't believe you skipped going to Comic-Con on Saturday. It was Saturday. Yeah. Well, on Saturday,
yeah,
to do a pin show and sell. And I say, I'm going to go up and make money selling my product and talking to fans versus walking around looking at stuff at Comic-Con. And I had zero regrets doing it.
Hell yeah.
Zero. Yeah. So, and that's the business. I mean, you have to make those decisions along the way. Like, are you there to have fun? Which I did. We did preview night Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I did 3 days, 2.5 days of Comic-Con, and I still got a lot out of it. I did a panel. Then I packed my car on Friday afternoon, drove up to Anaheim. I was there at 7:30 on Saturday morning to set up for a show that started at noon. Like, we broke down at 7. I repacked my car by 8, and I drove back to San Diego.
Yeah, a very similar experience.
Yeah. It was
San Diego 5 a.m. or something like that.
Yeah, it was a long day. Yeah, it was a long day. And I don't, again, for anyone that doesn't know, doing a pin show is a lot of work. And like I think you set up an 8-foot table. I set up a 10-foot booth. Like, that's one of those things where I built a store inside of a show, basically, because I do 5 grid walls plus a table, the flooring, the walls. I did so much in a few hours just to get this set up to, again, look like my brand when you walk in and say, oh, Blank Slate's here. And it's totally worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, there was just so many tidbits of like helpful information. I wanted to just kind of chime in with the pro tip. Always make sure that if you're vending at a show, to have business cards to give away. Go to your Staples and print them the day before if you have to, or Vistaprint or wherever, and because like that stuff goes a long way.
For sure. Handouts. Other events you're going to be at. I've promoted other things at pin shows. You never know, like giveaways for like stickers. I sell a lot of stickers, but I also have some giveaway stickers. Buttons, always good and cheap to sell. One of the things I've also learned about doing pin shows is having levels of things you're selling. So for the experienced people, you'll always see that they have levels. And sometimes a new pin maker might not realize what that's all about. So I have high-end items. So I have skate decks that go for $75 or $80. And then I have my pin sets, which is the collection of the interlock pins on a card that are actually a higher price point as well. And then the interlock pins individually. And then I have like $10 pins, $7 pins. And then it goes all the way down to where I have these boxes of old pins from swap meets and yard sales and things that I go through and I collect and I kind of curate. And I have them on the table, which are like the cheapy pins, but people come through and dig through those boxes and purchase a lot of stuff. So anyone that wants to go in and spend a few dollars on these cheaper pins or stickers have a price point, or somebody that wants to come in and buy a skate deck and a couple of sets can do that as well. So, and it really does help when these people are coming through, customers to budget out how they're going to purchase from you.
Yeah. I love the tier thing. That makes like a lot of sense. It helps make the like the more expensive stuff seem like a better deal.
In some ways, yeah.
Yeah. In some ways, for sure. But it's cool to just kind of be able to hit the range of different, potential shoppers that you have. Also, while you were kind of explaining that, I was envisioning you, because I'm getting ready for a show, and after every show, I am setting up a table down in my living room, just kind of like prepping what it's going to look like with the current inventory that I have. I can't imagine you doing that. Do you do that with your whole pop-up?
I have in the past. During COVID, I did a Pop Shop Live where I set up basically the booth in the living room with the grid and everything, that kind of stuff, which was awesome. But nowadays, I've gotten I don't know if you can see back here over my shoulder, but those are all tubs of the inventory. So kind of how everything fits, I already kind of know. I have charts for each of the grid walls, how everything gets lined up on there. So I have it very organized now and how everything gets set up. And then the week of a show, I have these large boxes that I pack everything into. So I know this box kind of holds this stuff and this box holds this stuff. And then what goes on each grid wall, which goes on the table. And for me, it's organized. So my normal setup's about 2 hours for the 10-foot booth.
Ooh.
Yeah, which is I know it's a commitment.
That is a commitment, but I love it. I got a quick question about the skate decks.
Sure.
Yo, you're making skate decks? That's awesome.
I am.
People actually buy them? They
do. I've done 3 so far. I did a Boba Fett, I did a Darth Vader, and I did an Ahsoka.
Oh, that's so cool.
And so when I create the art for the pins, since everything's set up as vector art in Illustrator, I'm a big believer in repurposing art. So the art on the Boba Fett deck is my interlock design from the pins on the deck with a cool background. The same with the Vader and the same with the Ahsoka. So I can do that. And then I do stickers, same thing, repurpose the art. Since you're using vector art, everything's scalable. So I can go anything that's super large all the way down to sticker size or something small like a pin.
Smart. I love that. Yeah, I do the same thing too with stickers.
Like I remember watching Phil talk about sometimes he's not sure if a pin's going to sell and that he'll make a sticker out of it first to see if it sells. I've done some of that as well. Because again, it's all about marketing, and anyone who has made pins knows you're going to have some clunkers along the way. And you make these pins and sometimes you'll put them out and that thing is going to be a peg warmer for a long time. And you may not sell too many of them. And you may love that pin with all your heart, but it just is not going to sell. So sometimes it is better to try it out with a sticker or something else along the way.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I do the
good
same
advice
thing
by
too.
Phil. I loved when Phil said that. I was like, oh, he's so right. So
right, yeah, he's a man full of so much wisdom. I wish he would. He's got to be like a correspondent on the podcast or something. Have his give him a little blurb in the newsletter.
Yes, for sure.
With also the latest happenings on like Disneyland, because he's all about key pass updates or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
all it's weird. Like, how close are you with pin makers on the East Coast versus pin makers on the West Coast?
I don't know. I think I'm actually closer to like everyone out on the West Coast.
Yeah, right. And it's weird because starting 5 years ago. My first introduction was with Clay Graham, which I don't know if you've officially met Clay. Okay, so you
I did, yeah.
met Clay. So he hasn't been on the podcast yet, but for me, he was my first pin guy. So, and I'm assuming he's on the list. So, but it's weird going 5 years ago, going to an event where he was the pin guy for me on the West Coast before I knew anyone in LA or anyone else. And then just over the time, that's between him and Juan from El Black Bat, and then meeting Punchy Chewy Press and BB Create, and then Carlos from Data and Phil, and like kind of growing this group that I've become very friendly with, and like enough where we'll finish a show and then we'll go grab In and Out afterwards, that type of stuff. And for me, that's what a show really is seeing my friends and hanging out with them in some ways is like my secondary thing after selling and doing the marketing at a show, is like knowing that I'm going to go have food and break bread with these guys that I'm close with and asking how their show was and how their sales were and what they thought of X, Y, and Z, and having these actual breakdowns of things kind of after, like having that as a community, like you said, where you're like, oh, we do have a lot of similar things, or, oh, I didn't realize that that's selling so well, I need to do that as well. So the hat thing for me, not only are the hat guys at these shows, but I started seeing Juan and Clay doing their peeper pins, which on the hats, they kind of peeking out of something. And I was like, oh, that's ingenious. This was about a year and a half ago. And I knew right away, this was something that I needed to start studying and starting to do as a pin maker, like, because this is a market I want to get into.
Hell yeah. It's like also tradition to go out to dinner with pin makers after a pin show.
Yeah, of course. It's super cool. I love it. I love hanging out with those guys. You find out a lot about their lives and what's going on outside of the pin world. And
That's the cool thing, branching outside and just kind of like connecting as human beings.
yeah,
You learn so much, and by me actually doing that's how I was able to like save a little bit of money going out to California, by like staying with certain people, hanging out with certain people and stuff. Like, I was generously put up in San Diego by someone who's a big fan of like Warrior Pins, and we just kind of connected not too long ago too, and it's just like good vibes and just that community, that wholesomeness, and just hanging out with like Nostalgia Vault and Otherworld. And I was able to grab dinner with Phil, Cool Electric Creations, and just have, like all these people actually have like meaningful interactions. Like it goes beyond pins. Is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'd love to do something out there. Like I'm always signed up for a lot of show stuff on Instagram. So I see stuff like, what is it? I want to say it's like punk rock something in Jersey. It's
the punk rock flea market.
Flea market. Yes, punk rock flea market. So I follow them and I always see who's going to be there. And I always think that would be something fun to do. Like if I lived out where you are, that would be something I would want to do. Or when Ricky comes out there to do a New York show, like he's going to be doing soon with Patches and Pins, doing those kind of shows. Like that's like the next step for Blank Slate, is building up enough equity where I can travel to other cities and actually sell my wares.
Amazing. I don't want to think about the breakdown of everything and how many checked luggages you're going to have. But the punk rock flea market, that is really cool. I did it once early on in like the Warrior Pins timeline, and I think you'd do really well. Really well. You'd fit the vibe.
Yeah,
but
it's the glasses. Everyone tells me I look like I'm in a band. So interesting. So
I was talking about it from a brand perspective, because I know
that too.
For a fact, I've also like attended just as whatever, and just from my past experience, your booth would stand out tremendously, because it's like in this like industrial rundown mill building, very dreary looking, very it's an old fucking building,
and my
much.
yellow
so
would
the
just
yellow
be like a beacon. Yeah,
So that would be cool. But yeah, if you ever make it out to Jersey,
Yeah.
definitely hit me up. That would be fun.
Yeah, well, I'd let you know before I come out for sure. So,
Oh hell yeah. Um, so I did notice that you didn't have an actual website. So I'm kind of curious on your thought process on sticking with Etsy versus like having blankslatePins.com.
yeah, I was one of those people too. Like, I know Etsy's slowly creeping up on what they're charging people, things like that. So, and there was even Instagram, like in the whole algorithm and not promoting people, and how likes and reels and everything kind of intersects. And it's been hard for pin sellers, especially coming out of the pandemic, like how to deal with having this stuff. So I know a lot of people jumped off of Etsy to build their own websites and do that. And I looked at some of the analytics, and I felt like I am still getting enough business pushed my way from everything I'm doing to stay on Etsy. And they are still giving a discount on shipping. They're still selling it overseas, shipping cheaper than what you can get outside of doing your own website and through the mail and stuff like that. So I've really tried to look at a lot of those prices as well. Not that I sell a lot overseas, but enough where I've seen that happen. And I'm like, oh, like this is going to cost me $18, but I looked online and it's going to cost somebody else $30. So it's like, okay, this is it for me. It's a bigger draw. And then they take a little bit more from the Etsy. If a sale comes from Etsy ad, they take a little bit more from your sale. But in the big picture, I'm probably getting more business pushed my way because I'm a 5-star salesperson on Etsy. I have 100% on my whatever likability on Etsy. So I feel like they use me as a staple to push a lot of business my way. So I'm drawing business that way. While if I had my own website, I may not get as much business.
That's a smart approach.
Yeah.
And you're totally right. Etsy's their what is it, like their search is just like increasing. Search volume has just been increasing crazy.
Yeah. And again, I create fan art. And if there was a day where somebody said no more Star Wars pins, a big chunk of my business would go away. So, and I look down the list of Etsy sellers, and there's a ton of them out there. And I go to pin shows, and I know pin people, and like almost everyone has some sort of Star Wars piece in their sales, in their toolbox. They're selling some Star Wars type of something, no matter what it is, from a saying pin or a character pin or a scene pin or almost anything. Like a lot of people are cross pin between Star Wars and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something. Like there's going to be something out there. So if something happened, I would be crushed, but I would have to go in another direction and start to do something else. But luckily enough, Etsy really doesn't crack down on Star Wars as much as they do on other types of pins. Like I've seen a lot of stuff where people have really lost what they're promoting because Etsy has said no more of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, there's been a wave of like takedowns with turtle pins.
Yeah,
which is just I still don't understand. So I try not to put too much like thought or effort into it, so I don't stress myself out. But you got folks still, when you're looking at like the technicalities of trying to do your best to kind of stay off the grid. You remove certain keywords and from the titles and descriptions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You do your best to like, circumvent these situations from happening, but then you see other folks that just like still straight up have like the name and the titles and stuff like that. And it's like, Etsy, like, what are you doing? Like, what's going on behind the scenes?
There's no rhyme or reason for anything happening on any platform whatsoever. Instagram, Facebook, Etsy, like it's just a random mess of decision making in who's not going to be able to sell something that they want to sell, basically. And it's kind of trying to figure out how that works in a big picture and not taking things too personal. Like one of the biggest shockers that happened over the weekend for me was seeing that BB Create had their whole Instagram taken down, which I still haven't gotten the whole story on, but I saw that and I was like, what happened, like, Instagram to do something like that? Like, and if it can happen to them, it can literally happen to anyone. So
I got scared. I actually, I don't, I was DMing with Miguel about the situation. I don't want to tell that story.
Yeah, that's his story to tell. I get it.
Exactly. But it like, how many followers did they have? I don't remember. Like 30,000?
Yeah, something like that. It was a lot. So
it was a lot of followers, and I started spiraling over the weekend when I saw that, thinking like, oh my God, everything, like, all the relationships, 6 years of DMs gone, all your posts, all those interactions. It's like, that would be so devastating. So, he was very emotional in a lot of the stories that he was sharing. Just getting like super transparent, which like sucks, to happen to one, another panelist, but two, just like two good dudes.
Yeah, and the crazy thing that I've seen, including myself, was people that reposted them saying, "Hey, check out Bieber Create again." Their thing got canned by Instagram. Be sure to follow them on their new Instagram site and stuff like that. And the outpouring of love from the community was amazing. So, and I got personal messages from him saying, "Thanks so much. I love you. This is amazing. Thanks for helping out," like all that stuff. And that's what the community is about. And that's what these friendships are about for me. So is like, if something like that happened, I would hope other friends of mine would help step up and do the same thing. So
low-key, Miguel does love you. That was very evident, at the con.
Yeah.
I feel like I just sounded pretentious calling it the con.
Yeah, the con. Yeah, we're in the know, so yeah, it's good.
Yeah, but shout out to BB Create. I think if you just search for them on Instagram, give their new
one
account
pops
a
up.
follow. Yeah, help our brothers out. For sure. Chris, a couple more questions for you, and then I'll let you get back to the heat wave.
Perfect.
So after having a pretty lengthy career, professionally speaking, you're doing the pins for the past 5-6 years. How do you continue to stay inspired?
Oh, that's good. I'm a nerd. Been a nerd my whole life. I was playing Dungeons and Dragons in high school. I love Marvel.
Hellfire.
All that stuff. Like, it's crazy to see that and be like, oh, that's my life back then. So yeah, I get it. So, but yeah, I look for inspiration in everything. I love going to the movies. I love watching Netflix shows. It helps that I do what I do professionally in the creative side, because that also helps inspire what I do on the business side for the pins. So I get to see what's popular, what's happening in advertising world. I'm one of those people that loves commercials on the Super Bowl more than I love football, don't get me wrong, but I love the commercials more than I love football. So I'll watch those ahead of time online. Anything that's going to give me, going to the beach. I'm lucky. I live in San Diego. The beach is right there. If I need to clear my brain and I need to get out there and take the sketchbook and doodle, I'll do that. Like, almost anything for me really helps inspire. And I'm one of those people too that I need to have my time away. Like, I gave a description of what my daily life is like, but there's other times where I will basically clock out for days and not post anything on Instagram. And it's because I'm recharging or I'm dealing with other stuff. And, life gets in the way of things, like us postponing our talk because somebody got sick. It happens. You roll with the punches and that's the way life is. Like, you have to really be able to adjust the way that you think of things. And so creatively absorb as much as you can and take it all in. And like, being a creative, I'm kind of lucky because I'm also very left brain as well. Since I'm a creative director, I have to deal with managing budgets and doing that stuff. So believe it or not, I'm a list maker, and I'm one of those people that check stuff off, and I do the same thing creatively. I'll make a list of the stuff I need to do, and I'll start working on that as well. So it's like backing cards for new pin, check. Sticker mules, having stickers come out, design those, send those out. I need a new t-shirt design, work on that. And I'm very meticulous, and I'll work on that as well. It's like creatively, you have to gain creativity, but also be very organized.
I love it.
And I know that's some people just have a really hard time. Like when they see that I draw out that whole set months and months in advance, they're like, how did you know that this is what you wanted to do? It's like, well, I knew that was the next set in line. So I just started working on those characters and sketching them out. And, I've already started working on what comes next. And I actually have a list on a bulletin board over here that shows like up through set 10 that I have planned for Interlock. And that's not even going as deep as I could. And I started doing things like expansion sets. So I make pins that fit in between pins. So you basically have a set, and then you'll move 2 pins aside and you'll stick another pin in the middle of them. And it's like, how can you do this? Like, how do you figure this out? And it's like, again, it's all about really good planning. Like, yeah, and it's weird, I know. So
no, man, you're killing it, but you're also just very visual with your description. So I just kind of got lost in like thinking of how I could think of some sort of interlock thing that isn't interlock, but similar to like turtles or something like that. It's just
getting to the point where I'm at. Like people said, aren't you worried somebody's going to take this idea? First off, there's no such thing as taking an idea, because we're all working with the same, cloud of ideas. Yeah, like you're going to pull ideas from things. How many Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle designers are there? How many Star Wars designers are there? People are going to come up with designs that look similar, things like that. So it's kind of like, okay, that's cool. But if somebody came up with an awesome interlock or some kind of puzzle piece, awesome. I don't know if they could sustain what I'm doing, which is kind of where I'm at now, where I have upwards of 30 interlock Star Wars pins, and I have another 5 ready to release, plus another 5 expansion. So like another 10 pins. So we're looking at 40 pins that I'm going to have by the middle of next year. Go for it. You want to do a Star Wars interlock set? Go to town, start it up, because I'm not worried. And the other thing I have going on my side is quality. So anyone who has bought from me will have seen what I do and knows that's a quality pin. And I also work in soft enamel, which people go, why don't you do hard enamel? Like, I only buy hard enamel. I'm not going to buy your soft enamel pins. Oh, okay. Well, I started with soft enamel, and I'm 30 pins in. I'm not going to switch all of a sudden to hard enamel interlock pins. Now I've done interlock soft enamel with an epoxy coating to give the illusion of that. And a lot of people have switched over to start buying those, and that's cool too. I'm fine with, helping whatever somebody's looking for. I'm going to help facilitate that as well. So, and by the way, I wanted to throw this out here. After our panel, we had a lot of people that started asking questions and wanted to email us, and I've gotten a lot of that. And I'm more than willing to, you email me or DM me or Etsy message me. I will always answer whoever is asking me any question, from who is your manufacturer, how do you design, what's your steps you go through. Like, that interaction with the fans or people that want to create pins is always open. Like, that door is open to us as far as I'm concerned. It's fallen on us now as panelists at a pin panel to be that and be those people that have been there for 5 going on, 6 years or whatever, to answer these questions of upcoming pin people.
Hell yeah. Woo, talk about staying inspired. I love it. There's definitely like a lot to take from that.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, Chris, last question. I love ending the podcast with this one. What are the little things in life for you?
Yeah. I wrote these down because I didn't want to miss anything.
I love it. Yes.
Enjoy what you do for a living. No matter what it is in life, enjoy what you do for a living. Make sure, as an artist, love what you create. Like, you want to make Star Wars pins, you better love Star Wars. You love Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, make the pin. Like, do whatever it is, because then if you don't sell a pin, you know you created something as an artist that you love, and that's a piece of you. Don't stress about as much as you can in life. You know, daily life, money. Don't stress, because it's just going to pile on you. And if you can shed that in your life, you'll be much better off. Don't waste time. I've been one of those people. I used to get done with work and we would play video games for an hour and a half, 2 hours after work. At work, we would stay and play like World of Warcraft or StarCraft, our creative to decompress. Then once the side hustles really started to take off, that just kind of went to the wayside. So now I allocate my time much better. So if you're sitting around watching a week of Netflix and you haven't been working on your next pin, that's on you. You know, don't waste that time that you can be doing, creating something for your business by doing something. And is take time for yourself, no matter what, because you can't just be all business. You need a break. You have to go watch those movies and get creative inspiration and talk to friends and, you know, make those phone calls and talk to your family and spend time, you know, doing other things, because otherwise it will just become a grind, no matter what you're doing, your day job, your side hustle.
Spoken like someone who's been through the ringer, so to speak.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Chris, oh man, those are like 10 commandments to like live by.
We'll put them on tablets and we'll hand them out at pin shows.
Little reset kits. No, but those are all really important. Those are all things that I think are super important, especially the stress part too. Like if you can somehow eliminate it, take care of that, it's like a trickle down effect. It really does make a difference when you can kind of get that under control. It's tough, but
yeah, like no matter what it is. I mean, people stress about what their pins are going. Like, you really don't know. Like, you're going to have that bundle of stress in your stomach when you send that art off to the manufacturer to get your pins back. And until you open that box and you look at your pins, you really aren't going to know. I mean, when you roll it all the way back to pin making, that's like a stress 101. And I really don't try, like, you may get a photo of it or you may have gotten a sample of it, but until you get those 100, 200 pins in your hands and you're opening those up and seeing how they look, you know, that's stress 101 for pin makers. And it's hard. It's hard to put that off and just go, all right, I'm going to be good with this no matter what. And I've eaten pins. I've watched other pin people talk on the podcast and go, I've had to eat these pins. I ate pins recently where I was so unhappy with them. I told them to remake them. Luckily enough, they had made a mistake. Since it was a variance, they made a mistake on a big chunk of the pins. So they paid for part of the pins to get remade. Plus I paid for a new mold to get made and for all the pins to get redone on its own.
Oof.
I was going to say, it's crazy to think I spent that money out of my own pocket in my own, but as a perfectionist, I couldn't sell those. And, you know, would it be an albatross around my neck, knowing that I sold something that looks not up to par on how I would want the brand represented.
100%. And I was going to make a bad joke from the panel where here the bad B stock pins are the ones they're going to be giving away after the panel.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. Stick around.
Stick around. I know. Actually, and I'll even tell you what the pin was, because it was my last interlock pin. It was Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I had put a second line under his eye to give some depth, and it made him look sad. And I didn't want to sell sad Obi-Wan, so I went back and I redid the pin and I cleaned up the thing and I paid the mold charges again, and I got them redone. And I will say, night and day. Like, I'm so happy with the way they came out versus the first batch that I got, that it's uncanny. So, and that's good. And I want, again, when I do a pin drop, I know I have a list of Etsy followers and Instagram followers that are waiting on pins and needles because they know that they want that next pin. And speaking of which, I should be getting my next interlock pin dropping in the next week to 10 days, just as a little, well, whenever this actually comes out. So by the time this drops, who knows? And the pin may be out.
Yeah, definitely. It should drop. I'm still on August on this calendar over here. Woo. It should be
No, you got to
September 15th. No, not 15th. Is it 15th? Yeah, next week, 15th. That's when this should drop.
There you
Maybe, I was gonna say something else, but then the calendar thing just kind of distracted me.
Sorry, yeah. And I don't know. I always am curious when you're doing these, how much editing there is and how much you'll take out of what we talk about.
It's to be honest with you, the editing has become less and less as it's gone on. I've kind of learned to, it sounds weird, but to find my own voice because I've been editing them. I kind of know how to navigate the conversations. There's some little edits and stuff like that, but for the most part, it's like 98% like unedited. Just
The
like
free
little.
flow. I love it.
Yeah. I just get rid of my my ums and because I'm self-conscious. So.
I hear you. I say so a lot. So when I listen to feed playbacks, I'll count the number of times I've said it.
I don't even want to put a number to it, but I can see all the like the little ticks in like Premiere every time I edit. You should see like the first episode. Ooh, it was bad trying to be a perfectionist. But people just learn to love like the casual conversation of like the podcast, and like that's what it is. This is how we would probably be talking in person. So best to kind of like leave it unedited.
Perfect.
But there was something that you were saying, and then BB Create had some advice that popped up in my head. They said it at the end of their episode, but I cannot for the life of me remember. And it was like I was gonna try and tie a bow on this episode with that advice, and gosh dang it. You know what? You guys are going to have to do me a favor and listen to the BB Create episode once more. But
that's right. Those Mike and McGill are amazing. So I also I want to do so I work with a friend, and he's also a fellow pin maker. And I don't know if you've heard of him, the Pencil Fighters.
Heard of him?
Yes.
But,
So I've worked with Ron way back in the Midway. We both worked at Midway at Home Entertainment. So we're talking a million years ago. And that's where I've known him from. And we've been friends for like 20 years. And just having the ability to actually have somebody on my team now that I work with, that we actually do work, day job work. And then we also do pin stuff and art stuff together. Is crazy, and it's amazing, and it helps really kind of bounce ideas. So we'll be working, and I'll lean over and I'll be like, what do you think of this? Or we'll go to lunch and we'll talk about certain things, everything from sports, or we'll talk about pin shows or art shows or what he's working on or what I'm working on. And it's nice to be able to have somebody that you can really bounce ideas off. And I think as pin makers, sometimes we work in a vacuum, and you really don't have that time to have that. So it's another good reason to have these connections outside of the pin world, where you can talk and actually talk freely about art and pins and things like that, or what you're working on, and not feel like somebody's going to steal your idea. Again, no one's stealing anything. And I don't really like when I show something to somebody that I'm working on, I'm not worried that they're going to take my idea and run with it ahead of time. I guess if they did that, so be it. But I like to think that, it's going to happen one way or another. So
I like where your head's at.
Are you still thinking what?
I was hoping that it would come back to me, but I
still hasn't come back.
I can't freaking remember. It was a good one too. It was a good one. If I remember it while editing, maybe I'll like clip it into the end of the episode.
Yeah, and we'll do a post-mortem, and we'll come back and we'll add like a scene at the end, and we'll change our shirts and everything, and we'll just do it like we'll act like everything's normal, but we'll just
Oh, I love it. On that note, Chris, I appreciate you hopping on here and sharing your expertise, kind of pulling back the curtains and showing how Blank Slate is run, where your inspiration comes from, all that good stuff. It was a pleasure. This hour went by quick, didn't it?
It does. It does. I really appreciate it. I appreciate, being able to talk to you at Comic-Con, outside of Comic-Con since then, and actually making a friend like out of all this is a better than anything else. Like friend and then pin maker and somebody that, you can actually just talk to about normal stuff, because that, again, it's one of those things where, I can have a million business friends, but once you actually have a friend and somebody that you like, then that's a better connection anyway. So
it's huge.
Yeah.
Why don't you let the people know where they can find you on the social medias, on Etsy, and all that good stuff?
For sure. It's at _slate_design on Instagram. And then on Etsy, just search Blank Slate and it'll pop up.
Perfect. Blank Slate. Get on that. You're going to want to check out his pins. The Interlock series is dope. The area code, zip code series, that's dope. I did come up with a couple ideas. Maybe we can collab together and do something in the future, Ninja Turtle related, obviously. But
always done.
Good stuff.
I'm always in. So
hell yeah, that's what I love to hear, guys. That is the episode. I appreciate all of y'all tuning in. Chris, I hope you have a good night. Stay cool, my friend.
Cool. Thanks, Eric. I appreciate it.
Peace.